Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Gensius. I happen to be a faculty member at Kent State University, but more importantly, a podcaster and an Apple product fan. And usually my colleague on the show is Eric Bolden, and he's on vacation with all sorts of complications. He's in a undisclosed place, was going to be in San Diego in time to do the recording tonight, and then got caught in some messy traffic. So it's myself and Cosmo Scharf, who is joining me as a guest tonight, and we'll find out more about his work. He's an adopter of Apple Vision Pro and a creator of Magic Bean's newsletter and visionOS dev partner. So you're really involved in a lot of stuff.
I sure am. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining us, or joining me, I guess. But to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
Sure. Hi. So I'm Cosmo, and I have been obsessed and excited about virtual reality for over a decade, going back to when I read Ready Player One before it was a movie. And it was the fastest that I had ever read anything in my life, in about 3 days on a vacation. It completely captivated my attention. And ever since then, I've been doing a variety of different things in VR, starting with VRLA, which was a meetup that I started with the intention of connecting with other fellow virtual reality enthusiasts at a time when it was very nascent. This was about 10 years ago in 2014. And I back then had to explain the whole concept of VR as, this thing you put on your face and you look around and you're somewhere else. And, it was much lower fidelity back then. But anyhow, I grew VRLA into what became one of the world's largest immersive technology expos. And that was an awesome time. Around the same time, I also started a company called Mindshow, which was a 3D animation platform that allowed you to create and tell stories using we were using the HTC Vive and the first Oculus Rift. And then more recently, with the release of the Vision Pro, I had a renewed interest in immersive technology, spatial computing, and I just actually happened to launch a business around that today called visionOS Dev Partners, which supports developers to create the best apps possible for this platform.
Yeah, you've got some really cool background, and we'll talk about those products as we get through the show.
Sure.
With the content that we have, we'll give you some space, because I know, looking at your websites and looking at some of the material, you've done some really cool stuff. And so let's blend that together. I think you and I met on In Space. It was the first place we connected.
That's right.
And you mentioned Ready Player One.
Yeah.
I have to say, I never saw the movie when it came out,
okay.
nor had I read the book.
That's all right.
But my first flight, about 5 days after I got Vision Pro on release date, was out to Portland. And as part of the trip, that was the first movie in 3D that I watched on Vision Pro. So I figure it was a good movie to kind of inaugurate that headset with.
Sure, absolutely. And, I'll share as well. I attempted to do that and had an enjoyable time up until the point where it became so uncomfortable on my face that I had to take it off. So,
oh wow,
yeah, that's a challenge for sure with this product today, and I'm sure we can dive into that deeper in a bit.
Yeah, I'm one of those lucky few who have no problem with pain, and I will sit through the pain, or I just don't notice it. So what we're going to cover today is some news of Vision Pro, and then we're going to feature a discussion with Cosmos about his work, and particularly how he is using the headset and the other work he does around it. So in the news, it's, I first thought this is a slow week for Apple Vision Pro because trying to search and find stories on it and new developments, everything's been overshadowed by WWDC. And you kind of have to filter through that. And the comments related to the Vision Pro seem to be afterthought. So they'll talk about the new foldable MacBook and the only comment on that, it's probably going to be as expensive as a Vision Pro. So it's really hard to dig out new stories, but there's some interesting things if you look for it. And the first story is one that was in Gadget, and it's a long story about Apple WWDC 2024, what's expected, and all these links will be posted within the podcast. But I tell you, you have to page down it before you get to anything on the Vision Pro. And what you get essentially is it's going to be started in new countries, which we knew. They don't talk about, we're all hoping for visionOS 2.0 and some good news on that. So I'll be paying attention to the WWDC just for that. There's not a lot of leaks or not a lot of stories about it.
Yeah, that is an interesting observation. There's been a lot of information about iOS 18 and of course all of the AI features that are expected, and barely a mention of any specifics relative to visionOS 2.0, which I happen to care a lot more about. But overall, I'm super stoked for WWDC in particular this year, and it's supposed to be a big one.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that people might be overzealous about what 2.0 is going to bring them.
Yeah.
And even if they announce the 2.0 functions, I think guaranteed people will be there will be people who are disappointed because we our eyes are bigger than our stomach.
Sure.
And I think it's going to be some simple things, but things that we'll all appreciate being able to do, even if they announce anything with 2.0 at this point.
Yeah. I think it's good to have low expectations. So, we're not disappointed. But yeah, I think one basic and obvious thing that I would expect is a more proper spatial native visionOS apps for the built-in apps like Maps and Calendar. Those are very obvious standouts right now.
Yeah, and those are the things that Apple should be developing on those apps and making them native. One of the things that was mentioned is, and it was a surprise to me, but I'm glad, was the Apple Design Award finalists. And they have a section on spatial computing. And some of did you see them? Did you take a look at what they were?
Yeah, there is NBA. There was the Sky Guide.
Yeah, Sky Guide.
The Luna game, and there's one other app.
Synth Riders.
Yeah.
Synth Riders, which is the Beat Saber for Vision Pro. Black Box was another app, and these are the finalists. And then DJ.
Mm-hmm. So some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm on all of these. I think with the exception of DJ and NBA, but some cool stuff.
Yeah, certainly. I can't say that I've actually tried the NBA app, but I have used DJ, and I have used Synth Riders, and there are definitely some interesting things. I think it's, honestly, slim pickings overall.
Yeah.
Just kind of like the early state of, barely a couple months into a brand new platform. So, I think it'll be super interesting to see where we're at, this time next year to kind of see the generational leap in quality, hopefully that the apps will have.
Yeah. And I've been on Sky Guide on my phone for a while, but then to have it in Vision Pro, where the whole room is your sky now, and being able to reach up and pull down different constellations, it's pretty cool. It's a good use of the spatial computing platform. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have seen more apps in this design section that were Apple Vision Pro only to kind of really bolster. But a lot of these are builds from other platforms. They were there before.
Multi-platform apps, you mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Well, you think of the app though, like black boxes that kind of you
Yes.
move your hand around and draw and burst bubbles and things like that. Couldn't do that on an iPad. It just wouldn't
Right.
work. And Luna, have you tried Luna?
Yeah, I have briefly.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Good
It's
stuff.
three-dimensional sort of design or puzzle
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. I found it to be pretty
Yeah.
relaxing and fun. I think we're in, an interesting time now for just these early stages of this platform where there's some nifty things for sure, but I don't know how many like standout experiences there truly are.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm not a big gamer, so I got into this platform for productivity.
Mhm.
Um, I'm using it a lot for media consumption just because it's such a great device for media consumption. But I am still, I'll sit down with it in the evening, sometimes in the morning, plan my day in the morning, follow through on stuff and clean up stuff in the evening, and then head into some media. But I've been enjoying it, and particularly those kinds of games that you couldn't do in any other space than spatial computing.
Sure.
So yeah, another article from iMore. iMore has this way of the sky is falling, and thank God we found out the place where it's not falling. Could VR gaming save Apple Vision Pro? These new releases point to the future Apple may not have anticipated. Essentially, when you go through it, they go through some history of it, of like Tetras or a Tetra version being initially on a previous Apple device. And but what they talk about here are the two essentially the two programs from Alchemy Labs, which is Job Simulator and Vacation Simulator. And I've played those on Oculus, with the handsets, and am anxious to play particularly Job Simulator. The Vacation Simulator seems kind of weird, but the idea that you're actually using your hands instead of working through a handheld device to be able to do the activities, and it's using the hand tracking for that. But yeah, iMore kind of said, "Oh, we finally found the salvation for that poor product, the Apple Vision Pro."
Yeah, I saw that article, and I definitely take issue with the headline, like implying that it's in need of saving. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Everybody I know that has one is pretty much happy with it.
Yeah,
Those that aren't happy have moved on.
I'm amused by the cynicism around this device, and I think it's primarily a factor of just the expectations and the hype that were created around it, and then the price as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if it's this expensive, it needs to be literally perfect, which is an unreasonable thing to expect. And I just published a whole video about why I'm overall bullish on the long-term prospects of this device, because from my perspective, shortcomings and problems that we experience with it as a first generation product at some point inevitably will be addressed. So then at that point, it's like, yeah, this thing is dope.
Yeah, for me, wanting to be an early adopter on these things, it was sort of, when they first announced it, and I've said this on the show before, I started saving money back then because I knew I wanted to get it, whatever it was, whatever condition it was going to be in. I know some folks who have some very, they have liquid income, but they're like, nah, I'm going to wait for the price to come down and I'm going to wait for version 2. And it's sort of like, yeah, what's the fun in that? With this new device, there's so much cool stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I've always said to people, a lot of people ask me how it is, and many people not in the tech industry are curious about it. And I say that really I would only recommend it to one of two people. Like, you either have tons of money and it's, the expense is really not much to you and you're curious to try it out, or two, you are in the VR, AR community in some way, and you are interested in building and being, an early adopter and creating a business, an app, a game on it early, and, gaining the learnings from it at this point when the community is, smaller.
I'm just enjoying it. I figure life's too short, and I can't take it with me. So enjoy it while I can. Another article from XR AI Spotlight, which is a Substack, basically, or part of Substack. It was interesting. I mean, it was clickbait for me. It was a Vision Pro usage survey. And what, is it a daily essential or dust collector? And I generally get the thing on my head at least once a day, and fun for me. It's my kind of form of entertainment, and in some cases work. I get some work cleared out from it. But it's a weird survey. If listeners want to look at it, they had like 350 or 360 people do the original vote. And it was, do you use it almost daily, a few times every week, a couple of times or less a week, or don't own it, but curious? And as it turned out, 258 of those 300 plus people didn't own it, so
Okay.
So the author removed those people, and it left him with 108 votes. And the data kind of said, and these were folks that he knew through creators, developers, and founders. So it's a limited pool, but 41% almost daily, 28% a few times a week, and 31% a couple of times or less per week. I think that's pretty good considering technology. I mean, again, this is not the perfect subject pool for results, but it was optimistic.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I certainly share a curiosity in understanding usage patterns and behaviors for a device that's so early in its development publicly. I do wonder if like the need to ask that question is potentially troubling, or like, it implies perhaps that something has gone awry, or people aren't using it. I'm curious to ask you like where the Vision Pro fits into your life relative to the other devices that you own tech-wise.
I like it to get away from this room that you see me in. This is a 12 by 12 room. It's really hot. And I've got three monitors, a fourth monitor for a Windows machine, and a television set. I feel like I'm in a space capsule in here, and I've got my studio Mac. And so I like to get into a larger room, and I can do that. I guess I could do it in here with the headset. But I generally go downstairs, sit on the couch, and will use it in the morning to figure out what's come in terms of email and student requests and things like that, and sort through those. I also create tasks on it because I have a task list that I use on it. And then we'll also clear my schedule. So I do some of the productivity stuff and get it all sorted out, and then come back into this room, which is my home office, and work in front of this space capsule that I'm sitting in. In the evening, just the opposite happens. I'll tell you, if I didn't have to edit this podcast after today, which I've been working in here all day, I would head downstairs with the headset and watch something on Apple TV Plus, or lately I'm working my way through the Fallout series and enjoying that. So I'm jumping from series to series and having some fun with the headset from an entertainment standpoint. So
Nice.
That's how I built it in. I really intended to have more of a productivity use for it. I'm waiting for the productivity to kind of catch up with me in terms of some of the standard apps, like you said, to be better, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, Apple definitely presented a pretty strong use case around productivity when they initially presented it. There are things you can do with it today in that vein, of course, sharing your screen to it, and I don't know, email, I suppose. But honestly, I find that my MacBook and even my phone to a certain extent are just more useful, more usable to get work done. I know that there's been some people that have even replaced their monitors with in favor of just having a Vision Pro, and I'm just like not about that.
Yeah, well, Eric's one of those persons who used to carry around a monitor with him because he's kind of in a mobile job, and has abandoned that now because he can use the Vision Pro and have all that stuff done on it wherever he goes or what he does. So he has a better sort of work. It fits his work environment and demands better than it does for me. I just go up a flight of stairs and I'm in my cocoon here, whereas he's on the road a lot and using it more from its mobility standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's honestly just, it says a lot about Mac OS and even iOS to a certain level, where so good that they're very hard to replace when it comes to getting work done. And I do, I think that the promise of having like multiple monitors and apps, laid out spatially is really compelling. How that actually plays into our lives in a practical sense. I personally have not, experienced myself, not to say that it's impossible, but just at the current level of this technology, both hardware and software, I just don't find it super practical to do emails and take notes and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I'm trying to get myself to use the voice commands a lot more, or voice dictation, which seems to be better than trying to move around screens and such. So for simple messaging, I just use voice, and that works well for me with the headset. Well, let's talk about a couple of other things. Project Gray Matter is what we're supposed to be hearing about at WWDC in reference to iOS 18 and macOS 15. It is the AI platform, I think, that Apple is going to be talking about or working through, giving AI tools, image editing, and more. This is a Apple Insider article that talks about it. Actually, it was a Macworld article that they took from Apple Insider. So they basically said, according to Apple Insider, now let me write that article in Macworld. So it was kind of some of these things, because of the newsletter you work, get picked up by one service, and then it winds up, the same article essentially winds up on another service. So this is Apple Insider and Macworld talking about Project Gray Matter. My only hope is that they use some of these same resources within Vision Pro.
Yeah, I mean, that's for me table stakes. If this new AI business does not get included in visionOS, that would be surprising and very disappointing.
Yeah.
In particular, because I think that the ultimate manifestation of this new Siri brain, like the most inspiring, the biggest opportunity to bring that to life, will be on visionOS. In the way that you can, going back to our conversation on productivity, right? Like, I think you can overcome a lot of the shortcomings in terms of, the eye tracking and the hand gestures that you trade in favor of, the other UI paradigms on macOS, when, the Siri, you can just talk to and it just knows what you want to do and accomplish that for you seamlessly. Yeah. Is the dream.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm hoping that it's incorporated into it. This article gives nothing about visionOS in it. So that's still a mystery. And if visionOS doesn't get its fair due at WWDC, then I think it's another kind of missed opportunity for Apple to advance the platform.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing that, to be honest. I mean, that would come as a pretty severe surprise and a disappointment. I mean, look, a lot of the focus is around iOS and will be for a while. But, Vision Pro is their latest and greatest. It represents the tip of the spear in terms of how they see the future of their company and technology as a whole. And so, their whole thing depends on getting developers to build cool stuff for it. Yeah. It's not going to be a success otherwise. And this is their developer conference and their opportunity to enroll us, the fans, the developers, the entrepreneurs, in that next step and whatever new features and APIs are available with that.
we have some quick stuff here because we're going to basically move more into kind of the app functions. I did have one link that will also be in the show notes. It is a YouTube visionOS development for Apple Vision Pro, and it's YouTube resources for development. And it's short videos to explain sort of the process of development, focusing on generate plain, I think is what I'm seeing here. But the link again is in the show notes. Did you have a chance to look at this or any comments on it?
I looked at it briefly. It seemed like there was quite a lot of material there, and what I appreciate about it is, there's definitely a real need for a higher quality and volume of educational resources for visionOS. There's some, there's none, but especially compared to iOS, there's just very little.
So after that, most of the news is about apps, there one final article on at looking at the Apple's immersive cameras. The ones that they have on site to shoot things like the MLS short immersion video, and looking at those. The article talks about the camera setup and what it is, but really for me, it's kind of the hope. I'm a baseball fan. So I have MLB. I would love to have these cameras spread throughout the parks that baseball teams play in to have a different experience. They're doing a little of it with Major League Soccer. They've got cameras stationary mounted, but I don't think they've gotten the full benefit of using these immersive video kinds of cameras. So I'm hoping, they were talking in the article about the how expensive the cameras are and how they can be, the limiting factor in doing this on a larger spread. But those are just those cameras. There are other producers who can create similar sorts of cameras and make them more readily available for the kinds of immersive experiences we'd like to see.
I have no insight into the cost of the production or the cameras, but I find a little hard to believe that cost would be a limiting factor here for the world's most valuable company.
Well, I'm not saying that that was the comment from the Apple Insider who wrote the article, that these are damned expensive.
Sure, I have no doubt.
Yeah. But it's interesting if you're into that level of video and tech analysis.
Yeah, it's interesting to see a little behind the scenes of what the camera looks like. So I find that cool to look at. But the immersive video is one of several categories that feels the most promising to me in the realm of use cases for Vision Pro. And we start to see little tidbits of that here and there with the videos that they put out on Apple TV Plus. In particular, I agree sports is probably the most compelling, and I know some people had some issues with the editing of the soccer one, but I found that to be quite fun, even though it was not a full game. But yeah, of course, in a world where just taking baseball as an example, having those cameras set up throughout the field. And being able to watch it live, right? If we can get there, not if, it's certainly really more a question of when, to be honest, because if you just think about just the progression of technology, it's, higher resolution, more, we want to feel like we're there. And this is the technology that can do that. So it seems probable that at some point in the future, we'll be able to experience that.
Yeah, if you watch the Friday night games that Apple does for Major League Baseball, they are shot completely differently than what you see from standard. And it's kind of nice. It's refreshing that you're getting a lot of you're getting really good video. That's one, but you're also getting a lot of different shots. And that, to me, that's just the possibility that they could be doing with immersive video and opening it up. They have enough money to be able to do that pretty much in any sport. If they really wanted to go whole hog with that.
Yeah.
It's just the locations and getting the approval from the parks and the teams and all of that to be able to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it seems inevitable. I have to imagine it's on their roadmap. It's just but it's not an easy thing to accomplish, right? In terms
Yeah.
of the pipeline, the hardware, the software, production process. I mean, apparently it takes quite a while to edit that content. I mean, we went, I think, 3 whole months between
Right.
episodes of their adventure series. So
Yeah, and
maybe that's,
they have a new sampler. They've redone the sampler from the original sampler, and that came out last week too. So
yeah, I've yet to watch that. That's a good reminder.
yeah. Have you tried any of these new apps? And these are the ones that seem to all come in one large, or I don't know if you call it an app or an experience, because
Mm.
it's and I wouldn't necessarily call it a game in some of the cases, but these came out this week. What if? Have you tried the Marvel What If?
Not yet. I downloaded it. It's on my to-do list for sure. I've just been quite busy launching this business and newsletter, so I've
Yeah.
yet to get to it.
Yeah, it's I'm not much of a gamer and I didn't grow up in the Marvel universe. But and you read the reviews on it and some people really like it. Like Jason Snell thinks this is great. This is what the
Mhm.
future still needs some work. Everybody's going to agree upon that, but
Yeah.
he thinks this is the future. This is what the platform could be.
Hmm.
I kind of fall, and then there are other like the Wired is like, why did I spend an hour watching this? There's an article in Wired about it.
Right.
I fall on the side of Jason Snell because I sat on my couch and and it's a huge program. It's, size wise, the main character, the narrator, the guide kind of shows up and I'm sitting on my couch and he's standing towering above me with his feet on my floor, you know, and then Wong comes in, who's going to teach me how to do these different hand movements and hand gestures, and it's pretty impressive. It's not a game. There's not like I don't have choices on what to do. I'm kind of told what to do. I had some glitches because there were certain hand gestures that I had been trained on, but when it came to use them, I couldn't use them. And what I noticed was I kept trying and trying, and it's like, okay, I'm stuck. What do I do? And the game must have realized that I'm not going to figure this out. So it went ahead and did it anyways. And then the character who was Captain America thanked me for helping. It was like, well, I just didn't really do my job. But it still is so impressive. It is such a different spatial experience. There's a zombies game, sort of that experience. They're in your room,
Hmm.
but really much better. The zombies is kind of clunky, but this is just really impressive.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
excited to try it.
yeah, yeah. I
I,
think
I
it'll give you some ideas too from.
Sure. Uh, so one of the companies that I started, Mind Show, is not exactly the same thing as what you're describing, but it's relevant in the sense of a VR storytelling, spatial experience. In our case, we were creating a tool that allowed you to create your own animation and then share and watch it with other people. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that so certainly these types of spatial devices will offer new ways of blending mediums, right?
Yeah,
Somewhere between a game and a movie,
yeah.
and
It feels
it's a
like an
very
adventure.
yeah, it's very
I
exciting.
wouldn't. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where Cards Fall is also an interesting sort of storyline. And that's available now. There's been a lot of chatter about that this week. I downloaded it. I haven't gotten into it yet. And then Job Simulator and Vacation Simulator that came over from the Oculus side. Did you try any of that on Oculus?
I tried the original job simulator on the Vive when that was
Oh,
like one of the premium kind of experiences that was available at the time when they announced it, or like shortly thereafter. So yeah, it was definitely like I have some memories of playing with that many years ago. And it was definitely like a standout in terms of the seamlessness of the interaction, the feeling of the immersiveness of getting to interact with this kind of character that is
yeah.
a robot kind of talking back at you. So definitely, was and has been a standout, in the VR space for quite a while. So it's encouraging to see games like that, make their way onto this platform, which it would be concerning otherwise. But it seems like there's definitely a dearth of other examples along those lines. I mean, we just saw Demio just came out, and I think the hand tracking refresh rate is a serious problem for the Vision Pro when it comes to those kinds of experiences. And I don't know if that's a hardware or software limitation, but it is something I hope to see addressed.
Yeah. And I saw some of that with What If, because there's different hand positions you have to put your hand out. And actually it gives you kind of a ghost of what you should do, and then you do it, and there's still that kind of delay, and it doesn't generate necessarily what it's supposed to generate all the time.
Yeah. I tried Synth Riders, which was, nominated for an Apple Design Award, and, beautiful graphics, but I tried playing it for, maybe 5-10 minutes. And like, I'm used to, the Quest with the controllers and like Beat Saber, and that all works pretty seamlessly. And it's like, yes, the vision of a controllerless spatial computer sounds great. And generally I believe in that as well. But like the reality of that experience just is not nearly as good compared to Quest controllers.
Will Apple come out with their own little handheld Pebble or something?
I think so. I compare it to I was thinking about when Apple introduced the iPhone, Steve Jobs made fun of the stylus. Right. It's like, no, we're gonna use a stylus. No, we're gonna use the one that God gave us or whatever. And now that paradigm of multi-touch was a profound innovation that has proven out to have succeeded. And at the same time, they then ultimately released the pencil, which was more specialized for taking notes, for drawing, and they've created a whole new industry around the digital illustration and painting on the iPad for artists. Now, granted, it's more of a niche than like a thing that is really necessary or useful for most iPad users, but they shifted their perspective, their strategy around that, however many years into the iPad being available. And so I don't know, I don't know how Apple thinks about the hand tracking versus controller thing internally, but there's just, there are things that you can only experience, like the buttons, and the haptic feedback that you get on a controller that just the hand tracking does not provide. And often, just interacting with basic menus on the Quest with the controllers, they've done some clever things where they have a little subtle haptic feedback as you touch the interface, as if like you were interacting with a touchscreen. And that small but subtle interaction, it just doesn't exist. It's not possible today on Vision Pro, and I'd love something like that for to be possible. So I know that many patents on haptics and rings and stuff. So I'm sure they're thinking about it. I remember when the Vision Pro was still a twinkle in Steve Jobs' eye for many, or Tim Cook's eye. It was rumored to have some kind of like thimble device on the ring. So I'm sure they have all kinds of weird and fun ideas around how to solve that. But generally speaking, I think, having it be a controllerless product by default makes the most sense. It's the most intuitive, but it comes with some pretty serious trade-offs that I would love to see addressed at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the things that I'm using it for now. The tapping works fine, but I also have a Oculus 3 and aware how they built in a lot of that haptic stuff into the controllers, and that feedback is a lot different than what you're getting if you're pointing your finger at the screen or pointing your finger at a target and clicking it like you're shooting a gun. In the Vision Pro, you just don't get the feedback. You don't have the directionality and kind of things that you do. So for those kind of gaming experiences, some type of handheld piece, even if it's a ring, might be more advantageous for the user and better.
Yeah, I think the way Vision Pro was positioned and announced, the breakthrough was in not only the high resolution displays, but the UI UX paradigm of glance and tap. I would imagine that Apple thinks it's important to really invest and sell that paradigm for the next couple of years, refine it, and then if they were to come out with some kind of controller, haptic, whatever, like that's probably not going to come for a couple of years.
Yeah. So Vision Pro,
perhaps, yeah, or 3, yeah. I mean, hard to say.
So let's talk a little bit about the projects you're involved in. Give you an opportunity to talk about your work.
Sure. Yeah. So visionOS Dev Partners is the main thing that I'm working on. I just happened to announce it today publicly. So you can go to visionosdevpartners.com to learn more. And essentially, it's a consulting business that supports developers working on this platform to make the most successful apps. So some of the core services include strategy, usability tests, and App Store optimization. And the thing that, beyond working with and supporting developers that I'm most excited about is leveraging the spatial personas to essentially operate this business and have conversations with developers through that technology. So I came to that realization after starting something about a month ago called spacetime.directory. And that's another project that I created to offer meetups and other opportunities to have people just build community and chat with each other through spatial personas. And so I find it to be a very compelling experience to use spatial personas in a FaceTime. So we call them space times. And so all the consultations that I have with developers will be through that technology.
You've got this company for developers. Then you have I think I was playing around with your site and I saw the space-time meetups. Is that a publicly available piece, or is that something that's locked to your company or to the developers?
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to spacetime.directory is the URL. So anyone can go check that out. There's various meetups and events that we host. And it's just been a really cool way to meet people. A lot of like random people from, Twitter or Reddit find us or YouTube. And, there's a limitation of 5 people right now per chat or per room. So
is that the persona limitation that we've heard about?
Yes. Yeah. So that's just Apple's limitation that I would expect that to change at some point. I hope so. And I also create content on YouTube and all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Mostly about visionOS. And then another thing I'm working on is the Magic Beans newsletter, which
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, thank you. So certainly spatial computing is a big interest of mine and area of focus within the newsletter, talking about, similar to you and what we're doing now about apps and just latest and greatest updates and insights around that subject. But I also have a lot of other interests, and in particular, the thesis and concept around the newsletter is seeing where spatial computing, where Vision Pro converge with other frontier technologies like AI, robotics, and photonics are some of the most interesting ones to me right now. And ultimately where I see us heading in terms of society, the world, culture is hard to precisely put a label on it, but it feels to me like when I think about the future and more advanced versions of everything I just described, it's a very different world. In the same way that when we look back at to pre-2007, pre-smartphone, and just the landscape of human society, when you would look around outside and people are just walking around. Now people are walking around staring at their phones, right? So like the impact, including myself. So the impact of this technology has been profound, and I think that we will continue to see new shifts in the way that it impacts our psychology, our relationships, and really fundamentally, like our understanding of ourselves and reality is kind of another lens on it.
Yeah. So how can listeners get in touch with you, either about the Magic? How does somebody, let's start with the Magic Beans newsletter. How does someone get the Magic Beans newsletter?
Sure. Yeah. Just magicbeansnewsletter.com is the URL for that.
Okay.
And you can also find it just by, there's a newsletter section on visionOSDevPartners.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, there are many ways. Certainly you can, contact me through the visionOS Dev Partners website, but also feel free to message me on X. Would be probably another good place to reach out.
Okay. And your X address or?
Yeah, thank you. Is my name. So Cosmo Scharf, Cosmo Scharf. Okay.
All right. And I'll make sure to have all of this in the notes portion of the podcast so people can find it there. If they've just heard it and then, without having to run back and get it, they can find it just in the notes directory of that.
Cool.
You are a very cool person.
I am. Thanks.
And, I'm thinking, oh man, I kind of want your opinions on stuff that comes up. Like I'm anxious to have a conversation with you about what came out of WWDC, and maybe we'll do that at some point or sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
I know our show will be talking about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I should also mention, so we're hosting probably what will be the largest space-time for that. Granted, it's across multiple rooms. So again, there's still the limitation of 5 people per room. But at the moment, we have 4 rooms that will be running concurrently to share play the WWDC keynote come June 10th. So yeah, a week from today, we'll be watching that together but separately in a way. We did that for the last Apple keynote for the iPads, and it worked flawlessly. And then after the video was done, they always have the new models as a 3D USDZ on their website. So then we just went into there and we were share playing that together. So it's like just a very futuristic experience.
That's very cool. I've gotten into the habit of, I have the luxury, the job that I have is I can schedule a keynote and not have to schedule anything else. So I've gotten in the habit of joining watch parties, if you want to call it that, or virtual watch parties. And it's always interesting to see what people have to say about it and what people's immediate reaction is to it. And sometimes it's who can buy the new thing the fastest, which is hard on the pocketbook. Well, Cosmos, I want to go through a couple of apps and then thank you again for all that you've contributed to the show tonight. Some new apps worth mentioning. Have you seen any of these? The Archive, and this is only a Vision Pro app. It is, I've gotten a little into it. It's again a huge app because there's lots of content that's in it, but it's within brackets Archive. And the link again is in the show. It's a design archive for Star Trek and design enthusiasts. So I hang out with a lot of people who are Star Trek nuts. I'm not one of them, but they start talking about Star Trek and I get a little lost, but you can see every version, a 3D model of every version of the Star Trek, the Enterprise.
That's with Otoy, right? Yeah, I've heard of it. I've yet to try it, but I love Star Trek, so that's a good reminder.
Yeah, well, it's only on AVP, so you can play with that and taunt all your friends who don't have Vision Pro.
No taunting for me, but that's funny.
Spatial airplanes is something I ran across. It somebody mentioned it on a Reddit post, and I downloaded it, and it's kind of fun. The concept is it uses spatial computing, so again, you're not going to find it on any other device. But you get a little paper airplane that you throw, and once you throw it, it hits the target, and then a target appears in another place, and you kind of use your hands to direct the airplane to the new target, and other things pop up that you can direct it to. And I had, I told you I'm not a gamer, but I had some trouble getting past one target. But once I got past it, it's sort of like conducting an orchestra. You're like moving the plane over this way, and then you're moving the plane over that way. And it's kind of a fun sort of Zen distraction from whatever's going on in your life. And then super simple feeds. It's both on Mac OS and also on Vision Pro. And, I can set up what feeds I want, have it on my Mac OS. And then when I have my headset on, I can look at different types of RSS feeds. So that's kind of a nice little app. Again, links will be in the show notes. Thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And you certainly have a good depth and knowledge and contribute to the thinking around this platform and the work that you're doing. And any way that we can support it through this podcast, I'll be happy to do that. And we'll stay in touch with that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. Our background music is Free Jazzy. It's courtesy of Steve Combs from the Free Music Archive. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have ideas or want to join in on an episode, email us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com. Learn more about us and the Vision Profile Podcast at our website at visionprofiles.info, where you can contact us through an email address there, and spread the word to other visionaries. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.